They flushed my medication down the toilet so I couldn't take it. What they didn't know was that I'd secretly hidden a couple of bottles for later. "Mom, the pills are making you sick. You can't take them anymore," my daughter said, spinning the orange bottle until it rattled. The bathroom filled with a sharp, sterile smell as the pills swirled around the toilet like a white storm in dirty water. "I think you're starting to forget things after these," she added. "Forgetting?" I asked. "Or do you think so?" My voice didn't shake, but hers did. My son leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms over his chest, trying to look meek, but failing. "We talked to Dr. Hale," he said. "He thinks you need supervision. Until we figure this out." "Figure out what?" I asked. "Important things," he said. "Home, finances. Maybe we can put you in a special place." Concern, as if that word could soften all that. My daughter's hand touched my sleeve. "No pills yet. They make you dizzy. Remember how you fell last winter?" "Slipped on the path," I said, although we both knew I had tripped over the toy truck my grandson always pulled. She smiled and tossed the empty bottle into the trash can, a flick of her wrist. I knew it didn't sound good. And I thought it was a good thing they hadn't noticed the small tin of tea hidden on the shelf behind the towels, where the real medicine lay, rustling softly. They never noticed that. "Let's make you some tea," my son said. "Chamomile. No sugar." "Fine," I said, because I had long ago learned that a soft word could be very harsh. How could my own children call this love, planning a life in which I had no say? I followed them into the kitchen, my slippered footsteps silent on the linoleum, and heard their whispers in the vent above the stove. "That's better," she said. "We'll transfer her next month." "If we get the papers? Supervision. The best, they stack their words like boxes in the hallway, then are surprised when I can't get through to them. What they didn't know. 3 weeks ago, I sat in the cool office of a woman who knows what fear feels like in her throat. Eleanor Park, an elder law attorney, small and sharp, with a streak of white in her hair that made her look like she'd survived a lightning strike. She took my hands and said, "Ability is not a feeling. It's a standard. We'll get there." And so we did. I took the tests. I recounted months ago and balanced my checkbook under the stopwatch while Eleanor watched the seconds without blinking. I walked in a straight line down her hallway while her paralegal, a polite man in comfortable shoes, noted my steadiness and stride. Dr. Hale never saw me that day. I saw Dr. Sosa, who had no reason to flatter me, but every reason to be accurate. She asked me what I was afraid of falling, of forgetting, of being snatched from my life without anyone calling her one. At the bank, I met Maisie, my friend since we were 17 when we were learning to type without looking at our fingers. Maisie was wearing a jacket now and a tiny pin in the shape of a key. She led me into a room with a table big enough to seat 8 people and said quietly, "You can change a lot of things in your life if you do this on Tuesday mornings." We set up a trust fund in my name and the name of the person I now trust more than my children. Lydia, who lives 2 doors down, a widowed math teacher who waters my roses when I'm away and never forgets the dates. A co-owner, actually. I signed the document with a pen that smelled faintly of ink and lemon. It felt like I'd carved my name into a doorframe at a height from which I could never be lowered. We added a clause that I liked so much I made Eleanor read it twice. I keep a life estate in my house, which means my home is mine to live in until I don't live at all. You can list it, you can dream about it, you can measure the rooms for furniture you'll buy with money you think is already yours. But I will sleep in my own bed and boil my own kettle until the breath runs out of me. I did not tell Marcus or Danny, not then. In the kitchen now, the kettle hissed. I poured into 3 mugs. Danny added honey to hers despite the no-sugar speech, then licked the spoon with a quick, guilty tongue. Marcus blew on the surface of his as if tea could fog the guilt away. "We'll come by Saturday," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I'll help pack some boxes." "Boxes?" I asked, as if the word were one I'd never learned. "For the basement," Danny said lightly. "Just for a bit. It's sunny. We put a rug down. I looked at her and saw the girl she'd been when she first came to my table. Eager, bright, hungry. Not for food, for space, for certainty, for a life that felt like new shoes. I loved her. I still could. But love doesn't mean handing someone the keys to your pulse. Saturday is good, I said. Come early. We'll make a day of it. They smiled, relief blooming. They thought agreement meant surrender. It meant rehearsal. After they left, I went to the hall closet, reached behind the folded holiday tablecloth, and pulled down the black shoebox with the split lid. Inside, a metal tin of butter cookies that has never in 50 years held a cookie. Inside the tin, the new bottle with my name and the dosage that keeps my heart walking rhythm and not sprinting toward the exit. I took one, dry, felt it dissolve like the calm of a steady hand on your shoulder. Then I climbed the stool and unscrewed the smoke detector. The tiny camera I'd tucked inside blinked its little red eye and smiled at me. I pressed the button that made it send everything it saw to a folder with a password only Lydia and I know. I reattached it, smoothed the paint with my palm, the way I smoothed Marcus's cowlick when he was 5 and believed pillows were mountains you could conquer with a wooden sword. On Thursday, I baked lemon bars for the church bake sale, a berry pie for the shelter fundraiser, and a small pan of brownies I didn't plan to share. I drove to the pharmacy. Agnes, I said to the pharmacist, could you fill this? I slid a slip across the counter. And also, can you do me a favor? Agnes has known me since her braces. She looked at the slip, looked at me, and said, come into the consultation room. What they flushed on Wednesday were sugar pills, a placebo bottle with my name, which is legal if you pay for it and sign. I signed. I paid. I smiled. Sometimes life gives you the chance to turn someone else's theater into your evidence. Friday afternoon, Victoria called. She calls me Mom, though I never asked her to. Mom, she said, I found a wonderful realtor just for when the time comes. It never hurts to be prepared, I said. I knew you'd be reasonable. Her voice turned butter smooth. She can bring a lockbox and take preliminary photos, just to estimate value and options. Saturday? I asked. Oh, you're a gem, she breathed. Yes, Saturday morning. I hung up. Then I called Lydia. Tea? I asked. Lydia arrived with a ledger book and her sensible shoes. We sat at the table with the good light. I told her about the lockbox that would find my doorknob in the morning. We'll leave it there, she said. We will? We will, she repeated. Because nothing says I consented like a lockbox you forgot to remove. She tapped the ledger. And nothing ruins a story like a date out of order. Saturday dawned bright as a coin. They came in a little convoy, Marcus and Danny with coffee cups, Victoria with a tote bag that clicked softly with metal and glass, and a woman in a blazer who introduced herself as Laura and complimented my hydrangeas. Just a walkthrough, Laura said, to give you ideas. I love ideas, I said. They toured, they measured with eyes that already owned. Danny opened the linen closet and said, we can pack this whole shelf in one box. Marcus tested the basement light. Ceiling's lower than I remember, he muttered, like a man inspecting a boat he plans to sink. Victoria hovered near the front door. A flick and the lockbox winked at my brass knob. Lydia arrived with a pie and a smile. Brought dessert, she said to Laura. I hope you like cherries. While they ate, Laura laid out a sheet. Just an estimate, she said, sliding it toward me. The number made Marcus's nostrils flare. He is not talented at hiding desire. He confuses it with air. I have an idea, he said softly. We should list before the market cools. You can stay with Danny while we renovate to maximize value, Victoria finished, swallowing pie like victory. I looked at Lydia. She nodded once. Laura, I said, would you mind giving us a moment? Of course. She stood, adjusted her blazer, left the sheet on the table like a badge of office, and went to admire my hydrangeas in earnest. I folded my hands. Marcus, I said. Danny, tell me the truth. Why now? Silence. Danny's mouth opened and closed, Marcus's jaw worked. Victoria reached for his wrist under the table, a small controlling touch. "Debt," he said finally. "Just a bit." "The restaurant. You know costs? We used the card in your name to cover a gap." "We meant to tell you which card?" I asked. My voice sounded like it did when I taught Sunday school and a child lifted the whole dish of glue. He named it, the one I cut up 2 years ago. Someone had kept the number like a souvenir. "How much?" I asked. "A lot," he said. "But the house will save you," Victoria finished. She smiled like someone offering prayer. "And we'll take care of you." Lydia's pen scratched a single word into the ledger: motive. I stood as if refilling the teapot. I walked to the hutch and opened the drawer where I keep napkins and clip-on earrings. I lifted out the manila envelope that sounded like a crisp dress. I set it on the table and slid out papers that smelled faintly of toner and lemon-scented hand lotion. "This," I said, tapping the first page, "is a letter from Dr. Sosa. It states that I am competent, oriented, and not the kind of woman who forgets to look both ways. This," I tapped the second, "is a trust. It owns my house. I am the trustee with Lydia as co-trustee. This clause here," I tapped the third, "is a life estate. It means I will live in this house until I am finished with it. You cannot sell it out from under me. You cannot leverage it. You cannot dangle it like a carrot while you build a stick." Marcus went pale. Danny flushed. Victoria's mouth tightened the way a curtain tightens when someone pulls a cord too fast. "I don't understand," Marcus said. "You don't have to," I said gently. "You have to respect it." Victoria's voice turned glossy. "We were only trying to help." "Of course," I said. "I have the tape of your help. That lockbox, the conversations under the vent, the pills in the toilet." I looked at Lydia, and she raised her phone. On the screen, a tiny rectangle played a tiny drama. The careful twist of a bottle, the white storm in dirty water, the words, "For your safety," spoken with a smile sharp enough to slice. "You were recording?" Danny whispered. "In my own home," I said. "For my own memory." "You said I was forgetting." Marcus's eyes filled with a bewildered, boyish hurt that almost reached me. Almost. "Mom," he said, "we're family." "Then you should have acted like family." Laura re-entered, saw the faces, and stopped. "Should I?" "You should leave the sheet," I said, "and take the pie. It's very good." After they left, Lydia and I sat quiet. The house hummed a contented hum, like a cat whose spot on the sofa is secure. "It won't be the end," Lydia said. "No," I said. "It's the beginning." That night, Marcus texted, "We need to talk. No more surprises." I thumbed back. "Come by Sunday, after church, bring the card statements." He didn't reply. Sunday morning, I wore the blue dress and the pearls Richard bought me when we learned being brave was something you rehearse. After the service, Pastor Ruth pressed my hand. "You look like a woman who's going to do a hard thing kindly." "I'm going to try," I said. They arrived without Danny. Just Marcus, hair too clean, shirt too crisp, like a boy in trouble trying to smell like innocence. "Victoria's with her mother," he said, not meeting my eyes. "She isn't feeling well." "Sit," I said. "Tea?" He stayed standing. "I did something stupid," he blurted. "More than the card. I signed your name on a pre-listing form. Laura needed it for her file." "It's not binding," she said. "Just permission to prepare." It was impulsive. The air thinned. I thought of the day he wrote his name for the first time in block letters that looked like buildings. I held that memory up to the light, and it turned like stained glass. "Show me," I said. He slid the paper across the table. My name in my looping hand, except it wasn't. The G too tight, the S too loose. A clumsy forgery. It would have been almost funny on any day but this one. "I'll fix it," he rushed. "I'll tell her I made a mistake." "You made several," I said. And now we fixed them properly. On Monday, Eleanor filed 2 things. The first, a notice revoking any permissions not executed by me or my co-trustee. The second, a police report, because forgery is not a hiccup, it's a crime. She sent copies to Laura's office, to the bank's fraud department, and with my permission to Adult Protective Services about the pills, about the pressure, about the words supervision, said like a leash. "Are you sure?" she asked me when the forms were stacked and the fax machine hummed like an old beehive. "I am," I said. I will not spend what's left of my life playing nice with my own erasure." She nodded and gave me a look that felt like respect and not pity. Then we prepare for fallout. It came in neat envelopes and messy visits. Danny showed up with flowers and red eyes. "We were scared," she said. "We thought you'd fall and no one would find you." "You put a lockbox on my door and flushed my prescription," I said. "That's not fear. That's control pretending to be love," she cried. I handed her tissues. I am not stone, but I did not soften. Victoria sent a text long as a river. It held every excuse a person learns when they've spent years making a room look right while letting the foundation crack. Misunderstandings, best intentions, good hearts. I did not reply. Marcus wrote a letter. It was short. "I don't know how to fix this," it said. "I just wanted us all safe." I wrote back. "Then learn what safety looks like when it isn't convenient." 2 weeks later, a detective named Ruiz knocked on my door. He had kind eyes and the posture of a man who grew up being told to stand straight. He asked to sit. He asked to see the video. He asked if I felt in danger. "I feel removed," I said, "as if someone tried to lift me out of my own life using polite words." He nodded. "That's still harm," he said. "Different kind, but real." He took notes. He photographed the lockbox. He took the forged form in a plastic bag. "It may not go far," he warned. "No one wants to drag a family through court." "I know," I said. "But I want a record. I want a line that says, 'Here we arranged a meeting, Eleanor, Detective Ruiz, me, and because consequences should be seen, Marcus.' We sat in a conference room with a view of a parking lot that looked like a board game for people who missed their exit. Marcus looked small in a chair, made to make people feel small. "Mr. Leeds," Ruiz began, polite as a Sunday hat, "do you understand what a forged signature means?" Marcus nodded. "I do now," he said. "Do you understand what it means to dispose of someone's prescribed medication?" He swallowed. We were afraid." "Do you understand," I interrupted softly, "that you were trying to make me easy to move?" He flinched. "I wanted you safe. And I wanted you honest." Eleanor slid a document forward. "This is a no-contact order, limited," she said, "regarding financial matters. You may not approach any of Miss Leeds' accounts, creditors, or property managers. You may not represent her financially. You may not engage service providers on her behalf." Marcus looked at me, his eyes raw. "Mom," he whispered. "I am still your mother," I said. "That's why you're not in handcuffs today. But I won't be your mark." We signed. Detective Ruiz shook Marcus's hand like a man shaking the past off his fingers. It was done in that small way things are done in offices. Quietly. With pens, under lights that buzz. You would think that would be the end. It wasn't. The twist, when it came, did not arrive with sirens. It arrived with a banker's crisp email. An application for a home equity line of credit had been submitted in my name. From my home computer. While I was at Bible study 3 Thursdays in a row, I don't keep my passwords written under the keyboard like a sitcom. I keep them in my head and in a little book with a broken spine that lives in my sewing basket. But sorrow makes people bold or sloppy. I called Maisie. "If I were someone who loved me badly," I asked, "and I wanted my house to pay for my mistakes, how would I do it?" "You'd need access to your email," she said, "to intercept the 2-factor codes. Or you'd need a device that's trusted." She paused. "Check your settings. Check your router." Another pause. "And check your grandson's tablet." I checked. In the list of recognized devices, my phone, my laptop, a tablet I didn't own. Danny's boy liked to play games while I made cookies. Somehow that tablet had become a trusted ship in my harbor. I called Lydia. She came with her toolkit, not wrenches, but knowledge. We unplugged, logged out, locked down. I sat with the boy one afternoon and said, "Sweetie, do you know the password for Nana's Wi-Fi?" He told me proudly. Children repeat what they hear when the grown-ups talk like no one is listening. "Who typed that into your tablet?" I asked. "Daddy," he said. "Thank you," I said, and meant it. Eleanor filed another report, not a criminal one yet, a notice to the bank that an attempt had been made, that we had secured the systems, that any application from me would be delivered in person with an appointment with witnesses. The next morning, Marcus appeared on my porch, alone again, thinner, fingers twitching. "I didn't do it," he said before hello. "Victoria, He stopped, closed his eyes. "She told me she'd handle things. She said she knew a way. You brought a lockbox and a forged form into my house," I said. "Don't hang your guilt on someone else's nail." He sat on the steps. He looked like a man from a distance of 20 years. "We're drowning," and he said, "the restaurant is bleeding. The landlord doubled the rent. Victoria keeps saying she can fix it if we can just get through the next month." "By walking over me," I said. He shook his head. "By pretending you agreed." "Did you think I'd thank you?" I asked. "For saving me from the inconvenience of my life?" He didn't answer. Birds argued in the maple. Somewhere, a dog barked at a leaf that had ideas above its station. "I won't save you the way you asked," I said finally, "but I'll offer a different rope." He looked up, hope flickering without permission. "I will pay for a bookkeeper," I said, and his face fell, because he wanted a miracle, not a ledger. "And I will pay for a business coach to tell you what you don't want to hear. And I will pay for 3 months of payroll so you can stop choosing between wages and the electric bill." "Out of the house?" he asked, reflex still reaching for the same shelf. "Out of a fund your father and I set aside for emergencies," I said. He believed in second chances. He did not believe in third ones. He blinked. "What's the condition?" "You sell the restaurant if the numbers say sell," I said. "You go to counseling with Danny, not because you're monsters, but because you forgot what love sounds like. And you don't touch my accounts, my locks, or my medicine, not ever again." He stared. "And if I say no?" "Then the reports stand," I said, "and I let ruin teach you what I could not." He said yes. Not because he understood, but because he was tired. Tired people make honest deals. Desperate people make dangerous ones. He was both. The coach came. She wore boots and carried a laptop that hissed with spreadsheets. She sat with Marcus for hours and made him say numbers out loud, like confessions. The bookkeeper visited the restaurant with a quiet smile and a stack of colored folders. She found the holes and marked them. Payroll went out on time for the first time in months. The staff cried and hugged my son with a kind of forgiveness that made my throat pinch. Victoria did not come. She sent texts with cheerful exclamations, "We've got this," "almost there," as if exclamation points could keep doors open. When the coach recommended closing, Victoria responded with a paragraph about vision and brand and community. The coach responded with rent, debt, and cash flow. The language of survival is sometimes ugly. It is also clear. 2 months later, Marcus locked the restaurant's door and handed the keys to a landlord who looked like a man who could make a house stand in a hurricane. It is a kind of mercy to hand a thing back before you break it further. You might think, this is where I forgive him and we all eat cake. Life is not a brochure. Forgiveness is not a ribbon. It is a muscle you use or lose. I used mine slowly. A PS closed their case with a note. Concerns addressed, supports in place. Detective Ruiz called to say the DA would not pursue charges this time. Documentation helps, he said. So, does you drawing boundaries that have actual nails in the wall? I changed the locks anyway, not because I was afraid, but because I am a woman who likes to sleep without wondering who thinks she's an idea to be rearranged. One more twist waited for me in an envelope with a crest I recognized but had never had cause to meet. A letter from the city. The new development down the road had offered to buy several adjacent lots to build another string of houses that all looked like they were drawn by someone who never lived in one. They wanted mine for strategic access. I read it twice. I made a pot of tea. I went and stood in the garden with the peonies Richard and I brought from our first home, wrapped in newspaper that left ink on our fingers for days. The sun lay soft on the bed he built for them, stones he'd carried one by one, refusing help because he was stubborn in the ways I loved. I called Eleanor. "How much is a life worth?" I asked. "As much as you say it is," she answered, "and as much as a contract says it's not leaving." We wrote back, "No." And then, because I am not a woman who only says no, I called the director of the shelter I bake for, and I asked a question that tasted like an apple you grew yourself. Would a house with a life estate for one stubborn old woman help you save more women? She cried. Then she laughed. Then she said yes in a voice so bright, I felt the peonies lift their heads. We amended the trust. Someday, not today, not tomorrow. The house will be theirs. Not to sell in a frenzy, but to use as a stepping stone for women who need a place to stand while the storm passes. I told Lydia. She wrote another word in the ledger. Legacy. When I told Marcus and Danny, I expected anger. Marcus surprised me. He nodded, slow. "It makes sense," he said. "It's what you do." "You always make food for people who are hungry," Danny cried again, the way you cry when you see a version of yourself you hope to meet. "Can I help?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "You can carry boxes. You can plant tomatoes. You can teach your son to knock when he wants something that isn't his." Victoria texted a single line. That house was supposed to be our future. I typed back, "Then build a different one." She did not respond. I keep the tea canister behind the towels, though I don't need to. Habits become bones. The pills inside are the right ones with labels that match, because I take them on time, because I want to keep waking up in a life that is mine. The camera still winks in the hallway. Not because I am afraid, but because memory is a story we rewrite every morning, and some details deserve to be exact. Sometimes, late, I think about the way the tablet spun in the toilet, a white storm in dirty water, and I let myself feel the anger that comes like a wave you have to surf or drown under. How could my own son do this to me? The answer is not neat. He did it because he was scared, because he is a man who learned to solve panic with action even when the action was wrong, because I taught him to be strong and forgot to teach him what strength looks like when someone says no. Revenge, if you want to call it that, is not a clever trap or a dramatic reveal, though I admit I enjoyed the way Victoria's face went still as a pond when Lydia pressed play. Revenge is living in the house you were supposed to be carried out of. It is inviting the people who tried to erase you to sit and drink tea while you explain what erasure looks like from the inside. It is turning a once future sale into a shelter for strangers whose names you may never know. It is finally saying the words you never thought you'd have to say to the boy you rocked in the dark. I will not make myself small to fit inside your fear. This morning, Lydia and I planted fall bulbs. We tucked them in like children and patted the soil with palms that have learned the shape of this earth. They won't show until spring, she said. I can wait, I said. I am good at waiting, good at planning, good at being underestimated. The mailbox creaked when I checked it, a postcard from the shelter, a note from Maisie about her granddaughter's wedding, a flyer from the realtor with glossy photos of a house that looked like a good hotel lobby. I smiled and slid it under the phone book, where plans go to nap. Inside, the kettle clicked off. The house smelled like lemon oil and old wood and the faint, sweet ghost of Richard's aftershave that lingers on the collar of the jacket I will never give away. I poured tea into the cracked mug I prefer over the pretty ones. I took a sip. I listened to the quiet. They thought the lockbox meant I would be easy to open. They forgot that some doors swing only one way. They forgot that the woman who taught them to tie their shoes can also teach them to stand on their own feet. They forgot, most of all, that kindness has a spine. If you want to know how it all happened, truly carefully, in the right order, it began the day I stopped mistaking politeness for safety. It began the day I hid my pills, yes, but also the day I called a lawyer and brought a friend into my money, the day I screwed a camera into my ceiling and refused to be ashamed of wanting proof. It began when I said the word mine out loud and let it ring, and it continues every morning with tea, with lists, with the door unlocked for the people I trust and very firmly closed to the ones who still think love is a word you wrap around a leash.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.